cool. Yeah. My talk is titled, You Should Write a BIP, but it's really just me ranting about BIPs for 25 minutes. But I do think that you should write a BIP. I have, over the past 10 years that I've been working on the Bitcoin Core wallet, I've read a lot of BIPs, implemented a bunch of them, and I've also written a large number. I've actually written 18 BIPs, which is the second most number of BIPs behind Peter Walla, who has written 27. That's a lot of text. So, thanks. So first of all, what even is a BIP? Well, you know how when you want to implement something, you might go look for a library to see if someone has already done the work for you? And if you can't find a library, maybe someone has written up like a design, a spec of whatever the hell you want to do. Well, BIPs are those designs and specs. So BIP stands for Bitcoin Improvement Proposal. They're modeled after the IETF's RFCs and the Python enhancement proposals, I think. And really what they are a bunch of documents that describe or that provide information or describe technologies that support and expand the utility of the Bitcoin currency. So this definition is actually extremely vague. Just about anything related to Bitcoin that you can put into words could be a BIP. And we actually have a category of those called informational. So yeah, there are 3 types of BIPs. The one that is most common and the one that I mainly focus on are the specification BIPs. These are BIPs that describe something that you can implement. It can be a new concept, a feature, some standard. Literally anything that you can put into software can be a specification BIP. So that ranges from our favorite fork proposals to peer-to-peer network messages to random other protocols that are relevant like PayJoin to things that are only relevant to wallets like PSBTs or descriptors or hierarchical derivation or derivation paths. All of these fall under specification BIPs. There's a few hundred of them, and they make up the vast majority of the BIPs in the BIPs repo. The second type are informational. Informational BIPs are things that can't really be implemented. They're like just providing extra information that people might want to know about Bitcoin. Some of these are the bits denomination. That's an informational BIP. There's an informational BIP to define Satoshis as the base unit of Bitcoin, or something like that. Like those are all terminology. And then there was a postmortem of the 2013 chain fork that's also an informational BIP. For some reason, that's the only one of its kind there. No one else has written a postmortem of something and proposed as a BIP. So the last type are process BIPs. And these are mainly BIPs 1, 2, and 3. These just describe how BIPs even work in the first place. So the current process is BIP 2, and it's hopefully going to be superseded by BIP 3. BIP 3 is a revision of BIP 2. Some things changed, not a whole lot changed. The process is largely the same, just some different terminology changed, and it's actually a pretty significant improvement. So a very important thing, though, about BIPs is that just because a BIP exists doesn't mean you should do it, doesn't mean it's a good idea, and it doesn't mean that anyone actually endorses it. You can look at the BIPs repo. There's a ton of BIPs that are labeled withdrawn or rejected. These are BIPs that either the author, after writing them, decided that they were a bad idea. That happens occasionally. Or they are BIPs that the community as a whole thought were a bad idea. So extremely important, just because you see a BIP number doesn't mean you should do it. There are a lot of dumb BIPs. I can point some out to you if you really care. I also have some opinions on some BIPs that haven't been rejected, but I think should be. We can get to that later. So what should be a BIP? I really think that there's two categories of specification BIPs. The first one is anything that requires software to be compatible. Our most obvious things are fork proposals. There's going to be different people implementing the same consensus rules. We need them to be compatible with each other. And so having a standards document is what enables that to happen. So we see this with fork proposals, peer-to-peer network messages, mempool policy, and page join, anything that requires different software to talk to each other. The second category is anything that you can implement that might be useful to someone else. And I think this is kind of where all of us here in the working in wallet space is like, these are the kind of BIPs that we might write. We had a great idea. It worked great for us, and maybe someone else can use this in the future, so we should consider writing a BIP for that in order to share the idea and foster innovation in this space. So a couple examples of these are BIP32, HD wallets. That topic has come up a lot today. There's also been PSBTs and descriptors. These things they're useful, but these things are good ideas and can work in a single software by themselves, but by sharing them with others, we are able to create compatibility, and we're able to build new things on top of them. Unfortunately, in this space, there are a bunch of things that are used in the ecosystem that aren't BIPs, and I think probably should be. So an important thing here is also that BIPs can be written retroactively. So you can create something, have a great idea, deploy it, it becomes widely used, and then decide, actually, I should probably write a BIP for this. We did that with descriptors. Descriptors started out as a Bitcoin Core only document, I guess. And then a bunch of other people started using descriptors. And eventually, 3 years later, it's like, we should probably write a BIP here and have a canonical standard that isn't just this random markdown file in the Bitcoin Core repo. I was going to say, the other example I have is BIP48. Fun fact, if you look at some of the older wallet software, you'll find a mention of this mysterious BIP48. It specifies multi-sig derivation paths, except for about 10 years, BIP48 didn't exist. I was looking through the Trezor firmware repo some time ago. I saw this BIP48 thing. I went to the BIPs repo, and BIP48 doesn't exist. So what the hell even is BIP48? Well, fortunately for us, a couple years ago, someone actually went through the effort of going through all the software that mentioned BIP48 to figure out what they were calling, what were they doing where they were calling BIP48, and then writing a document for that. So there is now a BIP48. And that's a kind of thing that could happen again with some of these things. So also, not to flame anyone in particular, but there are a couple common themes in this list I'm about to show you. The first one in my list of notable non-BIPs is the Electrum protocol. So the Electrum protocol, is a protocol that's used for light clients to communicate with Electrum servers. In my experience, there is very little documentation of what the protocol actually is. It doesn't have a BIP, but it's extremely widely used. A ton of, especially mobile wallets, implement Electrum clients, and then there's 5 or 10 different Electrum server implementations. The documentation that I can find for it is tied to specific implementations, and then also seems to be sometimes implementation specific, like the different implementations of Electrum servers implement some of the functions differently, so there's not necessarily compatibility there. But if someone actually wrote a canonical standard for this, we probably wouldn't have this problem. That would be great for all of us. The next one I got here, also Electrum, is the Electrum seed phrase format. This one, I think, is especially egregious because the Electrum seed phrase format was invented to oppose BIP39. It was invented to oppose something that was already a BIP. So why didn't they just write a BIP for it? I don't know. The docs for this also are basically non-existent, and like multiple wallets also implement the seed phrase format, so this would also have been a good candidate to be a BIP. And really, with this list, it's any of these I think are good candidates to be a BIP, and any one of you could try to write one. Asterisk. We'll get to that later. So another one here is the signed messages format. This was a format that Peter Walla invented in 2011-ish, something like that. And this is also extremely widely used. I think it's less used today, especially since we've moved away from like the idea of just keys. But this was a super widely used signed message format. Tons of different wallets implemented it, and there is actually zero documentation for this. The best documentation I can find is a Stack Exchange post from Peter that was written in like 2014, I think. This one does kind of have a good reason. Like, it used public key recovery, which is patented. So maybe we wanted to avoid scrutiny from lawyers about that, but like, who cares? So that's also one that could have been a BIP. And even better, this signed message format had extensions to support SegWit, because it was created before SegWit existed. When SegWit happened, the Electrum guys went and extended it for SegWit, and also didn't document their extension. Great. So there's, of course, also all of our original peer-to-peer protocol messages. All of our new peer-to-peer protocol messages get BIPs, and there are several BIPs specifying new P2P messages and how to use them, when to use them, all that jazz. But none for the original ones that are still widely in use today. Like the version message, adder message, all of these things don't actually have anything specifying how to use them, which is kind of problematic if you want to write a Bitcoin software that interacts with the peer-to-peer network. The best documentation for this is on bitcoin.org, written by Dave Harding about 10 years ago. But like, there's no BIP for them, and if you wanted to write software, it's hard to know what to actually do if you wanted to implement these messages. The last one I got here is Stratum. Stratum is the protocol used by miners to communicate with mining pools, or vice versa. And this one also is actually not documented. I could not find any documentation for it whatsoever. Yeah, I'm getting to that. There's like almost no documentation for Stratum. It is based on the Electrum protocol, but like, you know, how do you actually use it? And like the real way that people actually use Stratum v1 these days is they take like CG miner that was written however many years ago and just like copy and paste this code base all over the place. It's kind of not that great. I have an asterisk there because Stratum actually does have a draft BIP now. Someone has finally opened a PR to the BIPs repo to add a BIP for Stratum after a number was assigned 13 years ago and no document existed. Yeah, the Stratum, if you look at the BIPs README, Stratum is BIPs 40 and 41. These were signed in like 2012, I think, and the document has never existed. Yes. So these are some BIPs that, these are some things that I think should definitely have BIPs. And if one of you wanted to try to write a BIP, I have some opinions about that. So writing a BIP. How do you write a BIP? Well, the first thing is you read BIP2 or BIP3, preferably both. BIP3 is the new process, as I mentioned earlier. It's not active yet, so you should read BIP2, but really you should read 3 because it'll probably happen soon. And the process BIPs specify a lot of things that are really important, like the formatting. You have to meet certain formatting requirements for a BIP to be accepted. The BIP editors are pretty aggressive about that. And when you are writing something that can be implemented, you should actually implement it. This is apparently a shocking idea to some people, where they come up with an idea, but they don't actually implement it, and this results in some things that actually are specified and completely not implementable. Some of the less well-written BIPs are like, if you think about it for more than like 5 minutes, you'll realize that actually this is just straight up impossible to do. So I highly suggest that you implement your idea first, so you can find the bugs that come out during implementation. And also, a BIP needs to have enough detail in order to have enough detail that someone could implement it just by reading the text itself. If you look at the software BIPs, like SegWit and Taproot, those have a lot of detail, and if you just read the text of the BIPs themselves, you can actually come up with a complete implementation of that feature. And in my opinion, any specification BIP should be like that. I shouldn't need to go into your reference implementation, although that may be helpful, and I shouldn't need to look at your test vectors, although that may also be helpful. You should be able to read the text itself and come up with a compatible implementation. Also, this requirement, the BIP editors do check for this. It's also why I think that it's important for the BIP editors to be software developers, because when they read the spec, they can, if they're a software developer, they can imagine in their head how would they implement this, and that can inform them as to whether this is in fact implementable. Also, speaking of test vectors and reference implementation, you do need to have them. I think the BIP editors want you to have a reference implementation before they'll merge it, but they'll let you get away without having any test vectors. I have, in fact, written BIPs where I added the test vectors 3 years later. Yeah. So there's a couple sections in BIPs which are more free-form writing. One of them is the motivation section. This really only exists in order to get the point across as to why this BIP matters. There are a couple proposals where the motivation section turned into a 3,000-word essay about the author's opinion on a topic, and about 2,500 of those words were not necessary. Please don't do that. It wastes a lot of time. So yeah, the motivation is really just there to be like, this BIP exists for this reason. You don't really need to expand that much on it. It's not the place to leave an opinion. Similar for the rationale section. The rationale is often used with the footnote syntax, because the rationale is really footnotes about, here is a common question, kind of like, here's a question about some specific thing in the spec, and here's like a couple sentences on why we made that design decision. It's not the place to opine. It's not the place to write more than 50 words probably. So it's also important to get feedback on your BIPs. Both BIPs 2 and 3 do say that you're supposed to send your BIP to the BitcoinDev mailing list or to Delving Bitcoin. And the point of this is so that you can get some peer review before the BIP editors need to see it. There's only a few BIP editors, but there's lots of us, and all of us can read things and give our thoughts on it before they go in for more serious consideration. And this is also really important because you might have what you think is a good idea that someone else thinks is an absolutely stupid idea, and maybe you can have a discussion about why and how to resolve this difference. Because especially if you want to get your BIP adopted, you do need to convince other people that your BIP was a good idea. There's also the thing where you may have had a good idea. Someone else might have also had that idea. You guys could either collaborate to write a BIP, or maybe that BIP already exists, and you don't need to go through all the extra work of creating a BIP if you could reuse something that already existed. The last thing here, please don't use an LLM. Those are the kinds of things that generate those 3,000 words of text that could be cut. If you really know what you're doing, you can use an LLM as a tool. But if you want to write a new BIP, I would just say don't. There's been a lot of LLM written BIPs that I think are extremely low quality, and all they do right now is suck up people's time. So that's basically it. I do think everyone who is working on software in Bitcoin should consider writing a BIP, and I would say that Bitcoin needs you to write a BIP. Thank you.
Great. Oh, thanks, Ava. Any questions? Oh, a couple. Okay.
If, say for like BIP 68 and BIP 112, I think these are the time lock-based ones.
Yeah.
The BIPs themselves do not specify that the transaction version should be treated as an unsigned integer, but the Bitcoin core code typecasted the int32 to unsigned integer.
Someone revised those, I think.
Yes. But,
was that someone you?
So if there, no, that's not me. But I am ticked because Nicholas called it a BTCD bug, when it was in fact a Bitcoin Core bug, because BTCD was following the BIPs and Bitcoin Core was not. So in this, so I'm just venting at this point. But
actually the solution there is for us to have actually defined the transaction format in a BIP that specified what type the version number should have been.
Yes.
And unfortunately, no such BIP exists. You should write that.
Giving me more work. Okay, thank you.
Ava, is there any hackathon prize for anyone who writes a BIP as their hackathon project?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
I have another.
For multi-author BIPs, can a single author unilaterally withdraw it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be opening a pull request soon.
Or probably, like, the BIP editor, I think it's unclear, but probably. Yeah.
Are you going to be around tomorrow if people want to work on
I'll be around.
BIPs for hackathons?
If people have any questions about BIPs, I'll answer. If you want my more hot takes on specific BIPs, I'm happy to give them.
Cool. We have a Calvin Scott.
Can you get your BIP number taken away?
Depends on when you think you have a BIP number.
So if like they assigned it and you haven't,
if it's properly assigned in a PR, no. If Luke said it on Twitter, yes.
Okay, I'm just asking for a friend because I haven't replied to the GitHub reviews.
What's a BIP number?
A number that someone made up, assigned to a BIP for easy identification. That's it.
Any more questions? Yeah.
Who assigns the BIP number? Because I saw some like controversy about that.
So the BIP numbers are assigned by the BIP editors. They have, supposedly there's a pattern. Unclear what a pattern actually is, but the 6 BIP editors do discuss among themselves whether something is ready for a BIP number, and then one of them will go comment on the PR and assign it. And BIP numbers are only assigned in PRs.
Are the numbers arbitrary? Is there an ordering system? Is there any logic?
There is some logic. It doesn't really, I mean, it's basically arbitrary.
What BIP would get me a 2-digit BIP number?
So if you do PayJoin v3, I think that'll probably get a 2-digit number if it happens anytime in the next year.
What was this? Sorry, it was if you do what?
PayJoin so PayJoin right now is BIP 77 and 79. I think they'll probably do another one nearby for the next iteration of that. I think the 50s are open. But that might be reserved for postmortems.
Writing a postmortem might get you a...
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Great. Let's have another round of applause for Ava. Thank you.